Bobby Thompson up there swinging. He's got 2 out of 3, a single and a double, and Billy Cox is playing him right on the third base line. Branca throws.
Not a good pitch to hit, up and in. But Thompson swings and tomahawks the ball, and everybody watches. Except for Gleason, who is bent over in his seat, hands locked behind his neck, a creamy strand of slime swinging from his lips. Russ says,
There's a long strike!
His voice has a burst in it, a charge of expectation. There's a pause all around him, Pafko racing toward the left field corner. He says,
I can't be, I believe!
Pafko at the wall. Then he's looking up. People thinking, where's the ball? The scant delay, the stay in time that lasts a hair's breadth. And Cotter standing in section 35 watching the ball come in his direction. He feels his body turn to smoke. He loses sight of the ball when it climbs above the overhang, and he thinks it will land in the upper deck. But before he can smile or shout or bash his neighbor on the arm, before the moment can overwhelm him, the ball appears again. Stitches visibly spinning. That's how near it hits. Banging at an angle off a pillar. Hands flashing everywhere. Russ feels the crowd around him. A shudder passing through the stands, and then he is shouting into the mic, and there is a surge of color and motion, a crash that occurs upward, stadium-wide, hands and faces and shirts, bands of rippling men, and he is outright shouting. His voice has a power he'd thought long gone. It may lift the top of his head like a cartoon rocket. He says, a topspin line drive. He tomahawked the ball, and the ball had topspin and dipped into the lower deck, and there's Pafko at the 315 sign, looking straight up with his right arm braced at the wall and a spate of paper coming down. He says, yes, the voice is excessive with a little tickle of hysteria in the upper register, but it is mainly wham and womp. He sees Thompson capering around first. The hat of the first base coach. The first base coach has flung his hat straight up. He went for a chin-high pitch and cold-cocked it good. The ball started up high and then sank, missing the facade of the upper deck and dipping into the seats below. Pulled in, swallowed up, and the Dodger players stand looking, already separated from the event, staring flat into the shadows between the decks. He says, the crew is whooping. They are answering the roof bangers by beating on the walls and ceiling of the booth. People climbing the dugout roofs and the crowd shaking in its own noise. Branca on the mound in his tormented slouch. He came with a fastball up, a pitch that's tailing in, and the guy's supposed to take it for a ball. Russ is shouting himself right out of his sore throat, out of every malady and pathology and complaint and all the pangs of growing up and every memory that is not tender. He says, 4 times. Branca turns and picks up the rosin bag and throws it down, heading toward the clubhouse now, his shoulders aligned at a slant. He begins the long, dead trudge, paper falling everywhere. Russ knows he ought to settle down and let the mic pick up the sound of the swelling bedlam around him. But he can't stop shouting. There's nothing left of him but shout. He says,
Bobby Thompson hits into the lower deck of the left field stand!
He says,
The Giants win the pennant, and they're going crazy!
He says,
They're going crazy!
Then he raises a pure shout, wordless, a holler from the old days. It is fiddlin' time. It is mountain music on WCKY at 5:30 in the morning. The thing comes jumping right out of him, a jubilation. It might be, "Hey-oh," or it might be, "Oh boy," shouted backwards, or it might be something else entirely. Hard to tell when they don't use words. And Thompson's teammates gathering at home plate, and Thompson circling the bases in gamesome leaps, buck jumping. He is forever Bobby now, a romping boy lost to time, and his breath comes so fast he doesn't know if he can handle all the air that's pouring in. He sees men in a helter-skelter line waiting at the plate to pummel him, his teammates, No better fellas in the world, and there's a look in their faces. They're stunned by a happiness that has collapsed on them, bright-eyed under their caps. He tomahawked the pitch. He hit on top of it, and now his ears are ringing, and there's a numbing buzz in his hands and feet. And Robinson stands behind second, hands on hips, making sure Thompson touches every base. You can almost see Brave Jack grow old. Look at DeRocher spinning. Russ pauses for the first time to catch the full impact of the noise around him. Leo spinning in the coach's box. The manager stands and spins. He is spinning with his arms spread wide. Maybe it's an aesthetic rapture, a thing they do in mosques in Anatolia. People make it a point to register the time. Edgar stands with arms crossed and a level eye on Gleason folded over. Pages dropping all around them. It is a fairly thick issue. Laxatives and antacids, sanitary napkins and corn plasters and dandruff removers. Jackie utters an aquatic bark, but it is loud and crude, the hoarse call of some mammal in distress. Then the surge of flannel matter. He seems to be vomiting someone's taupe pajamas. The waist is liquidy smooth in the lingo of Adland, and it is splashing freely on Frank's stout Oxford shoes and fine Lisle hose and on the soft woven wool of his town and country trousers. The clock atop the clubhouse reads 3:58. Russ has got his face back into the mic. He shouts,
I don't believe it!
He shouts,
I don't believe it!
He shouts.
I do not believe it!
They are coming down to crowd the railings. They are coming from the far ends of the Great Raid configuration, and they are moving down the aisles and toward the rails. Pafko is out of paper range by now, jogging toward the clubhouse. But the paper keeps falling. If the early paper waves were slightly hostile and mocking, and the middle waves a form of fan commonality, then this last demonstration has a softness, a selfness. It is coming down from all points. Laundry tickets, envelopes swiped from the office. There are crushed cigarette packs and sticky wrap from ice cream sandwiches. Pages from memo pads and pocket calendars. They are throwing faded dollar bills. Snapshots torn to pieces, ruffled paper swaddles for cupcakes. They are tearing up letters they've been carrying around for years, pressed into their wallets, the residue of love affairs and college friendships. It is happy garbage now. The fans' intimate wish to be connected to the event unendably in the form of pocket litter, personal waste, a thing that carries a shadow identity, rolls of toilet tissue unbolting lyrically in streamers. They are gathered at the netting behind home plate, gripping the tight mesh. Russ is still shouting. He is not yet shouted out. He believes he has a thing that's worth repeating. Saying,
Bobby Thompson hit a line drive into the lower deck of the left field stand, and the Clay Faces go